In October of 2018, Eli Lilly was a mid-level pharmaceutical company, valued at not even half of Pfizer. But the company had a secret. That month, they published data from a new diabetes drug. Not only did it treat diabetes better than anything on the market, it helped its patients lose weight, sometimes up to 20% of their body weight. Eli Lilly did more studies. The FDA approved it for diabetes. Eli Lilly gave it a name.
Mounjaro.
Ask your doctor about once-weekly Mounjaro.
The secret was out, and not only would it help make Eli Lilly the most valuable pharmaceutical company in the world, but it could break America's healthcare system.
Everybody wants to know, how do I get Mounjaro?
Hey, Mounjaro fam, wanted to give you guys a quick update.
Completely changed my life.
Lilly today got a couple of bullish calls.
Is it too good to be true? Well, now, it may even be better.
Bank of America is estimating that the market could be quite big for Lilly, $6.4 billion in sales as of 2030.
It's actually Mounjaro. It's another part of it.
Oh, that's the amped up version.
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Oh, yeah.
You're
yeah, that's
kidding?
the fast forward to Skinnyville.
You're kidding.
Now, I'm not going to dive into the broader public health debate around the role of pharmaceuticals in treating obesity, but it is important to understand how drugs like Mounjaro work. Essentially, they mimic a hormone that lowers a person's blood sugar. This also makes a person feel full, which decreases their appetite. That results in weight loss. There's a handful of these drugs: Ozempic, Wegovy, Rybelsus. Mounjaro is the latest and most effective. It's also expensive. If your insurance doesn't cover it, it costs between $10,000 and $18,000 a year. So how did Eli Lilly get that number? To get that answer, we need to go back to 2015. That year, a bipartisan Senate committee studied how pharmaceutical companies set prices. And, pharma companies, they have their standard talking points about this.
Our system is built around a variety of pricing around the world, but that overall system supports our R&D model.
If we want to negotiate prices in that way, we've got to be willing to say no to both existing and future innovation.
The senators wanted to know how it actually worked, because this isn't a normal market with a buyer and a seller. There's the patient, or the person taking the prescription. They typically don't pay for the product alone. That falls on insurance, which is either private, for-profit, or government. There are different types of drugs: brand names, which are typically new drugs protected by patents, marketed and controlled by companies like Eli Lilly. Mounjaro is one of these. Companies spend billions on research and development. Meanwhile, there are generic drugs which work just the same but cost significantly less. There are co-pays, premiums, and not to mention out-of-pocket maximums and deductibles. Look, the US healthcare system is a mess, and nearly everyone agrees high prescription drug costs are a factor. So they put together a team of 17 investigators, lawyers, tax, and insurance experts. And over the next 18 months, they investigated one drug from one company, using it as a case study. They reviewed 20,000 pages of internal documents, interviewed dozens of medical experts. And the conclusion?
The evidence shows that the company pursued a calculated scheme for pricing and marketing based on one goal: maximizing revenue regardless of the human consequences. There was no concrete evidence in any document that basic financial matters, such as research and development costs, factored into how Gilead set the price.
I encourage you to look at the chart on page 30, and you can have a chance to look at the type of conversations the companies was having when they were pricing their drugs.
The only considerations that they had were if a certain price would be so high that doctors wouldn't prescribe it, insurers wouldn't cover it, and interest groups would make a stink.
No one's denying companies' ability to get a return, make some reasonable profit. But what we have now is just essentially it's a free-for-all. They'll price it whatever they think they can get away with it.
So that's what happens. All of these drugs carry a massive price tag, and there's a huge market. About 40% of Americans are considered obese. Word is spreading that there's a new super drug. This unprecedented demand is happening despite the drug not even being approved for weight loss. That's supposed to be coming by the end of the year. Eli Lilly has already spent billions building out facilities, and analysts aren't even sure that's enough. Why? In clinical tests, patients regained weight when they stopped taking the drug. And this is one reason why Eli Lilly is now the most valuable pharmaceutical company in the world.
Amazing, the billions of dollars in revenue they're going to earn for an injectable diabetes drug that you have to take for the rest of your life in order to keep that weight off.
You've got a drug with massive demand, and the early evidence indicates that a patient needs to take it forever. Some analysts say the entire weight loss market could reach $100 billion a year, with Eli Lilly capturing half of that. If those projections hold, Mounjaro would be the best-selling drug in the world, $20 billion higher than the current leader.
So this is the problem with the patent system. Companies have realized it's an instrument to block your competition, to get as much revenue through the door for as long as possible, particularly with these blockbuster drugs that could be real revenue earners. I think they'll find every possible way to find a patent that will extend the period, to block competition. As a lawyer who came from the private practice, all we ever did was scheme ways that we could get extra protection.
These schemes are fairly straightforward. They legally pay competitors not to enter markets or make a slight tweak to a drug's packaging or delivery, all in the service of maintaining high prices. So right now, and probably for the next decade, we're stuck with Eli Lilly's price.
From the values perspective, it's a good investment. Now, from the public finance perspective is where I have the problem.
The US government is one of the biggest payers of prescription drugs. Most government plans don't cover obesity drugs. Right now, Lilly and other obesity drug makers are lobbying Congress to require Medicare to cover obesity treatments.
At 10,000, we're going to compromise almost the whole Medicare budget, which is around 800 billions, in just one medicine. It's impossible. From the public finance perspective, we cannot afford this at $10,000.
New England Journal of Medicine analyzed another similar weight loss drug. They found if just 10% of the eligible people took it, it would eat up nearly 20% of Medicare's drug budget. On one drug. As is, the system would collapse. A test run of this happened in 2021. An expensive and unproven Alzheimer's treatment was added to Medicare. If just 500,000 people got the drug, it would eat up nearly 3/4 of the program's drug budget. The crisis was averted by sharply limiting access to the drug. The same battle is taking place with private insurers. Unlike the government, they can negotiate prices, but they don't have the same amount of power. So they're doing everything they can to not cover treatments. Communities have emerged to help prospective patients get their insurance company's approval. The thing is, these drugs are super expensive. The potential benefits to the system are in the long term. Insurers could pay for 5 years of treatment only to see a person lose their job and switch insurance. Of course they're against it. In both cases, the cost falls on individuals. Right now, the drug companies are offering patients coupons to lower the price, but that's temporary. In the future, people are looking at $10,000 to $18,000 a year, or the weight could come back. It's pushing some people into low-cost and unregulated compounding pharmacies. Mounjaro could become a drug only for the rich, despite obesity disproportionately impacting low-income people. So if Mounjaro and other weight loss drugs are actually going to be a piece of the obesity puzzle, the price has to come down. How do we ensure that happens? The Inflation Reduction Act gave Medicare some power to negotiate prices on a handful of older drugs, and the pharmaceutical industry is suing to stop these limited negotiations. The lawsuit claims that allowing the government to negotiate drug prices violates the Constitution. People expect it to go all the way up to the Supreme Court. The thing is, within our current system, the only way to really lower prices is through negotiation. Unlike most developed countries, we don't have a governmental body that evaluates and prices drugs. But the government should have leverage. Since 2006, it has paid for almost 40% of all prescription drugs.
Imagine that someone can buy a very important part of the market and you tell them, no, you cannot negotiate the prices. That doesn't make any sense. But we have something like that in the United States in Medicare. We need to use the Medicare and the public tools to negotiate more aggressively with the private sector.
We're basically letting the pharmaceutical industry decide prices, which is unfortunately a uniquely American issue.
It's the first time that the United States the government has some ability to negotiate for Medicare. I mean, it's only a small part of the market, but it's still an important part. Whereas a lot of the industrialized countries in Europe have been negotiating prices for God knows how long. So, it just goes to show that it's how much the US has to catch up in terms of actually setting the right prices.